Welcome back to Mr. Sean Productions, everybody. That's right, we are no longer Chimera Miniatures. I realized that I really hadn't discussed minis as a main topic on the channel in forever. This channel started as a way for me to advertise my miniatures, and it's kind of grown beyond that. So, going forward, we will be Mr. Sean Productions. However, there is one video coming out this week that will still have the Chimera Miniatures moniker. Now, normally today would be a members exclusive video, but today is serving as kind of a sneak peek to all of you who have maybe been considering becoming channel or Patreon members, because you will get access to all of my member exclusive videos, including the ones that have previously come out, if you're willing to join for as little as $1 a month. Now, most of this channel is just fun frivolity, very light, not overly saturated with controversial topics, but sometimes for the member exclusive videos, we do like to talk about things a little bit more seriously. My joke in the videos is, if I'm going to get myself canceled by sharing my true opinions on things, I might as well make people pay for the privilege. Hence, it's covered in the member exclusive video, but today is a sneak peek so that all of you can also enjoy the kind of content you can get by becoming a member of Mr. Sean Productions, either here on YouTube or over on Patreon, where the videos are also posted. Now, the idea for this video started as a conversation between me and my coworker about certain movies where there was kind of a little bit of a joke, where it was films using speciesism as a way to, in place of things like sexism or racism, and the one thing they always show in these movies is that the undesirable species aren't fit to be cops. And we started talking about movies that had this. We came up with 3 of them, and then realized that these movies came out only a year apart from each other, starting in 2016, and then another one came out in 2017, and another one in 2018, which was kind of a weird, especially because of the weird, they weren't all from the same company, they were drastically different, but that was the thing that all connects them. And so I've decided to expand on the idea of speciesism in place of, racism or sexism, and the idea of the ludicrous idea that in 3 separate films, that each one was portrayed through the fact that these undesirable species could not be cops. So with all that being said, let's begin. One of Hollywood's favorite tricks is to take a real-world issue, strip it of any direct human accountability, and slap it onto a bunch of anthropomorphic animals, puppets, or mythical creatures. It's a clever way to talk about racism and sexism without making the audience too uncomfortable, because nothing softens systematic discrimination like a cute bunny cop, a felt-covered detective, or an orc in a Kevlar vest. In this deep dive, we'll examine how Zootopia, The Happy Time Murders, and Bright use speciesism as a metaphor for discrimination, with a special focus on the fact that certain species in these films are outright banned, or at the very least deeply discouraged from becoming police officers. Because let's be real, when your metaphor for racial oppression involves literal carnivores, felt-skinned degenerates, and green-skinned brute stereotypes, things are bound to get complicated. Let's start with 2016's Zootopia, where the first rule of Bunny Cop Club is you don't belong here. The animal stand-in, predator versus prey, racial profiling, and gender discrimination. Disney's Zootopia is an animated sugar pill laced with a surprisingly potent dose of social commentary. It presents a world where animals live in a so-called utopia, spoiler, it's not, with an uneasy peace between predators and prey. The film's heroine, Judy Hopps, is a tiny, ambitious rabbit who wants to break through the speciest glass ceiling and become the first bunny cop. The problem? Rabbits are seen as adorable, weak, and completely unfit for law enforcement. Judy's struggle represents 2 real-world issues. The first being gender discrimination. She's constantly told she's too small and too cute to be a cop. Sound familiar? Women in male-dominated fields are frequently dismissed with the same patronizing attitude. The second part of Zootopia is racial profiling and institutional bias. The predators, particularly the film's co-lead, Nick Wilde, a smug but charming fox, faces systematic distrust from prey animals. Zootopia's societal structure clearly mirrors racial stereotypes, particularly how people of color are often assumed to be inherently dangerous or prone to violence. The law enforcement connection. Are predators too dangerous for the badge? The film takes an interesting turn when it's revealed that predators are being drugged into violent frenzies. A totally normal thing to happen in a Disney movie, right? The discovery leads to a citywide panic, with prey animals supporting policies that sideline and demonize predators. This is basically the Zootopian version of racial profiling on steroids, quite literally. The fact that predator animals are implicitly considered too dangerous to serve in law enforcement draws a strong parallel to how racial minorities, particularly black individuals, have historically been excluded from certain jobs due to false assumptions about their aggressive nature. Zootopia may look like a utopia, but it's really just a police procedural wrapped in an animated buddy comedy disguise. One of the things common in these films is this weird kind of ending where nothing has really changed, but they want you to believe that they've solved the speciesist issues, and the way that Zootopia does this at the end of the film is not only is Judy Hopps recognized as a hell of a police officer, but Nick Wilde becomes the first fox cop. Yay, we cured speciesism. Next, let's take a look at 2017's The Happy Time Murders, where you can't trust those shady-looking puppets. The species stand-in? Puppets, with representations of classism, race, and socioeconomic discrimination. Let's get one thing out of the way. The Happy Time Murders is a weird movie. It's a raunchy, R-rated puppet noir where puppets live alongside humans but are treated like absolute garbage. It's basically Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but instead of tunes, we have puppets who do drugs, engage in debauchery, and are generally regarded as second-class citizens. Puppets in this film are used as a stand-in for any group that has historically been ostracized due to class and race. They're viewed as untrustworthy, unprofessional, and inherently lesser. Much like how immigrants, racial minorities, and lower-income individuals have often been treated in the workforce. So what's the law enforcement connection? Well, the film's protagonist, Phil Phillips, was once an aspiring police officer, the first puppet to ever join the LAPD. That is until an incident, caused by human bias of course, led to his forced resignation, permanently barring puppets from law enforcement. This parallels real-life stories of marginalized individuals who break barriers, only to be pushed out when the system inevitably finds an excuse to remove them. Phil's story mirrors the struggles of racial minorities who have been systematically excluded from certain professions. His mere presence as a detective is seen as controversial, just as women, immigrants, and black officers have historically faced discrimination and resistance when entering law enforcement. If you ever thought, man, I wish someone made a hard-boiled cop movie about systematic injustice but starring felt-skinned degenerates, The Happy Time Murders is here for you. And finally, we come to 2018's Bright, where orcs are the minority group that even fantasy racists can agree on hating. Here we have orcs as the species stand-in with themes of racial discrimination, police brutality, and class struggles. If you ever wondered what would happen if Training Day collided with The Lord of the Rings and was then aggressively punched in the face, Bright is your answer. This Netflix original envisions a world where humans, elves, and orcs exist together, but society is deeply segregated. Orcs are the lowest tier of society, mocked, feared, and stereotyped as violent and uncivilized. They live in rundown neighborhoods, face constant discrimination, and are generally assumed to be gangsters and criminals. If this metaphor was any more obvious, the orcs would be driving lowriders and getting pulled over for existing suspiciously. The law enforcement connection? The first orc cop and the department that hates him. Enter Nick Jacoby, an orc who becomes the first of his kind to join the LAPD. His human partner, Daryl Ward, played by Will Smith, because of course it's Will Smith, treats him with disdain, while their fellow officers straight up loathe him. The entire film revolves around the struggle of an orc trying to prove himself in a police force that sees him as nothing more than a violent brute. This mirrors real-world racism in law enforcement. The idea that an entire species, or race, is inherently unfit to serve in the police force is a direct parallel to the discrimination black officers have faced in America's history. Jacoby isn't just dealing with discriminations from fellow officers, he's also an outcast in his own orc community, much like the real-life trailblazers who have been labeled sellouts for trying to succeed in a prejudiced system. Orcs and Bright are essentially the film's version of historically oppressed racial minorities, but instead of addressing racial inequality in a nuanced way, the movie kind of throws a bunch of fantasy cliches at the problem and hopes we don't notice that orcs are basically just blue-collar minorities with tusks. So, why does Hollywood love the speciesism as racism trope? Well, the reason films like Zootopia, The Happy Time Murders, and Bright rely on speciesism as a substitute for racism and sexism is simple. It makes the conversation more palatable. By using animals, puppets, and orcs, these films avoid the real-world baggage of discussing race and gender outright while still getting their message across. But while these metaphors can be effective, they also have their limits. At the end of the day, predators aren't real-life racial minorities, puppets aren't systematically oppressed, and orcs don't have centuries of historical discrimination to back up their struggles. Still, these films make an effort to get audiences thinking, sometimes with humor, sometimes with intensity, and sometimes with incredibly awkward puppet sex scenes. Looking at you, Happy Time Murders. So the next time you see a bunny cop, a felt-skinned detective, or an orc in a squad car, just remember, Hollywood still isn't quite ready to tackle racism and sexism head-on, but it sure does love a good metaphor. Thanks for watching today's free-to-all preview of the kind of content you can find in the members-only videos here at Mr. Sean Productions. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to see more videos with this kind of theme, be sure to become either a Patreon patron or a channel member here on YouTube. Tiers that get you access to all of my member-exclusive videos start as low as $1 a month. Until next time, I'm Mr. Sean. This is Mr. Sean Productions, and I sincerely hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.